27 million cubic meters of concrete, 32 turbines, one river that drains a fifth of China. This is the Three Gorges Dam, and this is how it was built. The site sits inside Xiling Gorge, the easternmost of the three canyons that gave the project its name. The Yangtze here is narrow, deep, and violent during the summer monsoon, rising more than 30 meters in a single season. For decades, engineers studied this stretch of water. The first formal proposal came in 1919 from Sun Yat-sen. 75 years of debate, war, and revision followed before ground was broken in 1994. The surveyors arrive first. They map the granite bedrock that will anchor the wall. They mark elevations on the cliffs that will one day sit beneath a reservoir 600 kilometers long. Before any concrete can be poured, the river must be moved. The first phase cofferdam is built on the right bank, a temporary wall of rock and clay that fences off a working pit from the main current. It is 2.5 kilometers long and rises 60 meters above the bedrock. Inside this enclosure, the water is pumped out, leaving a dry construction yard in the middle of one of the world's largest rivers. The cofferdam itself is a piece of engineering most dams would envy. Sheet piles are driven into the silt, then layers of crushed stone are tipped behind them, then clay is rolled into a watertight core. The Yangtze, squeezed into half its usual width, accelerates through the open channel. Discharge gauges along the bank read more than 40,000 cubic meters per second. With the cofferdam dry, the real digging begins. Crews strip away river silt, then weathered rock, then sound granite. The dam will sit directly on bedrock. No piles, no rafts, just concrete keyed into the mountain itself. More than 100 million cubic meters of material are removed, much of it blasted out by controlled charges and trucked to spoil tips downstream. The pit is stepped in long terraces so heavy machinery can work at every level at once. Geologists map every fracture they uncover. Where the rock is weak, they grout it with cement under pressure, sealing seams that could one day leak. The foundation footprint is staggering, 2,335 meters wide, the length of the finished dam. Standing on the floor of the pit, the cliffs above feel suddenly very far away. Concrete pouring starts in the central spillway section, the part of the dam that will eventually release floodwater downstream. The mix is delivered from a dedicated batching plant on the right bank, then carried across the pit by long boom tower cranes mounted on rails. Each lift is poured in blocks no thicker than 3 meters, because thicker pours would crack as they cure. Inside every block, a grid of small steel pipes circulates chilled river water. The water draws heat out of the setting concrete for weeks, holding the internal temperature within a few degrees of the surrounding rock. The pace is relentless. At peak production, the site swallows 20,000 cubic meters of concrete every 24 hours, a world record that stood for more than a decade. Each truck, each pipe, each thermocouple is tracked by serial number. As the spillway climbs, the Powerhouse foundations take shape beside it. Each of the 26 main turbine units gets its own concrete chamber, a vertical cylinder 12 meters across, sunk deep into the dam's downstream face. The water passages that will feed them are cast in place. Scroll cases, draft tubes, intake galleries. Every dimension is held to a few millimeters, because once the turbines arrive, there will be no room to adjust. The dam itself is not one continuous wall, but a series of independent monoliths, separated by vertical joints. This lets each section settle, expand, and contract on its own without cracking its neighbors. Between the monoliths, copper water stops are embedded, folded sheets that flex as the joints move while keeping the reservoir sealed. On the upstream face, grout galleries are formed for future maintenance access. While the main dam climbs, an entirely separate excavation cuts into the north bank. A double-line, 5-stage shiplock is being carved directly out of the mountain, a staircase of water chambers that will lift vessels 113 meters from downstream to reservoir level. The cut is more than 1.5 kilometers long. 40 million cubic meters of rock are blasted and hauled away, much of it reused as fill elsewhere on the site. Each lock chamber is 280 meters long, large enough for a 10,000-ton convoy. The walls are smooth granite, posts tensioned with steel anchors driven deep into the rock to hold them rigid against the pressure of a full chamber. Above the locks, a second project is starting: vertical shafts for a ship lift that will eventually carry smaller vessels in a single 40-minute ride. In 1997, the river is closed for the second time. The original cofferdam is breached, the water now flowing through 23 large openings cast into the partly built dam. A new cofferdam is thrown across the remaining left channel, and the cycle begins again. Pump out, excavate, pour. By this point, the central section is tall enough to carry the river through its own body, a strange in-between state where the structure is both dam and bridge. From upstream, the reservoir is already beginning to form. The pool rises slowly, swallowing the lowest sandbars first, then the riverside paths, then whole villages. 1.3 million people are relocated from the rising waters, moved to new towns built on higher ground. Ancient temples are dismantled stone by stone and rebuilt above the future shoreline. In 2006, the crest is reached. The wall now stands 185 meters above its bedrock and stretches 2,335 meters from bank to bank. 27.2 million cubic meters of concrete have been placed, enough to pave a road around the equator. The turbines arrive in pieces, each rotor weighing more than 400 tons. They are barged upstream, hoisted by a heavy gantry crane on the dam crest, and lowered into their pits with millimeter tolerance. The first units come online in 2003, even as construction continues around them. Each one generates 700 megawatts at full load. Together, the 32 main units and 2 smaller plant units total 22,500 megawatts, the largest installed power capacity at any single power station in the world. By 2010, the reservoir reaches its design level of 175 meters above sea level. The pool now stretches 660 kilometers upstream, past the city of Chongqing. Floods that once killed thousands in the lower Yangtze are now metered out through the spillway gates, dropping peak discharges by tens of thousands of cubic meters per second. Ships begin transiting the locks regularly. A loaded freighter takes about 4 hours to climb the 5 chambers. Beside the locks, the ship lift tower keeps rising. When finished, it will carry vessels up to 3,000 tons in a single counterweighted basin, the largest such machine ever built. On the right bank, the switchyard hums. Power flows east to Shanghai, south to Guangdong, west into Sichuan, through some of the longest ultra-high voltage lines on Earth. The dam is finished. It cost roughly $30 billion and almost 2 decades of work. It generates close to 100 terawatt-hours of electricity in a strong year, replacing tens of millions of tons of coal. It tames a river that has killed more people than any other in recorded history. It is also controversial. Sediment that once fertilized the lower plains now settles behind the wall. Seismic monitoring stations track tiny tremors triggered by the weight of the reservoir. Endemic species, including the river dolphin, have not survived the change. The Three Gorges Dam is not a clean story. It is an enormous one. A wall of concrete keyed into granite, a staircase of locks cut from a mountain, a lift the size of a stadium, and a river that no longer flows the way it did for 100,000 years.